Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Harvey Mudd, and welcome to our Delta T panel this morning. What we have here is a panel of people from 62 to 12. We're going to share some things with you this morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Liz Orwin. I'm class of 95, and I'm also a faculty member here. And so I get to moderate this great panel. And I'm going to start this morning by asking each of our panelists to go through and basically tell us who they are, what year they graduated, what major they were, and where they are now, as by means of introduction. So we're going to start on this end with Greg.
Hi, everybody. I'm Gregory Plum, engineering class of 2012, and these days I'm over in Long Beach working on software for satellite launch vehicles at Virgin Orbit, which just recently spun off of Virgin Galactic.
Good morning, my name is Jason Santiago. Class of 2007, mathematical biology major, and I work here in the Office of Admission.
I'm Noah Levine, class of 2002, and I started majoring in biology. Took a bunch of philosophy, liked that even more, so double majored with that, decided to go that path, and now I'm teaching philosophy at Golden West College in Huntington Beach.
Kathy French, class of 97. I'm in St. Louis, Missouri, engineering major, and I do permit compliance at power plants.
Rich McHugh, class of 92. My major ended up being biophysics by the end of it. I'm currently in Birmingham, Alabama as a ear, nose, and throat doctor and voice specialist.
Kate Kubisak, class of 87, 88 engineering, and working in engineering until I had kids when the 80-hour weeks weren't cutting it, so I'm sort of a jack of all trades.
I'm Craig Niederberger, class of 82. I was a chemistry and theater dual major, and I'm in Chicago at the University of Illinois in Chicago. I'm a practicing urologist in the College of Medicine there, and I'm joint appointed in the College of Engineering Department of Bioengineering. So I made the trek from chemistry all the way over to engineering.
My name is Luciana Casa. I'm class of 77 and 78, majoring in engineering. After I graduated from Harvey Mudd, I went to Silicon Valley and was very fortunate to be part of that boom and also part of the bust. Through the ups and downs. My major focus was actually only cybersecurity or enterprise software marketing. Unusual for Harvey Mudd, I'm sure.
Sally Shaw, class of 72. And I guess I could say maybe I minored in dance, although there weren't double majors at that time. I took a lot of scripts. I went to Dow Chemical for 33 years and did all sorts of things, some chemistry. And now I'm an ISO auditor with my husband and going to all the Silicon Valley companies and auditing them, which is fascinating.
Penny Barrett, class of 67. I majored in engineering, but for the last 40 years I've been a full-time volunteer, raising kids in the middle of that, and we live in Palo Alto.
Dick Olson, class of 62. I majored in physics for a while. I ended up teaching at Harvey Mudd for 37 years. Then I retired, except my wife says I'm recredited because I'm teaching a course now on the Cold War at Mudd.
All right, thank you. So since the theme of Alumni Weekend this year is about innovation, the first question I'm going to ask you to answer is about that. So what societal or technological innovation happened during your time at Mudd, and what effect did it have on your life? Let's start with Dick and come this way.
I suppose the biggest innovation that happened just before I came was Sputnik. And it changed not only my life, but the life of the college, because it essentially created a student body for Harvey Mudd in the early days. The other thing that happened with Mudd especially was an innovation that focused on what we now think of as the second part of our mission statement, that is the focus on the relationships between technology and society, which is what I ended up working in for most of my career.
Technological changes. We had an IBM 1620 in the bottom of the science building. That was our computer. Typewriters were our input. They were electric by then. I think societally, my year started off with the assassination of Kennedy. Then we had the Vietnam War and protests and folk music coming into fore. And I guess because I'm speaking from the women's perspective, the separation of the men and women on campus was major, and I'll speak to that later if we get to those questions. But that was something we had to deal with.
And I'm pleased to say that in '69, Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, so that was when I was at Harvey Mudd. And that was revolutionary, of course. But the one thing we've forgotten is that Star Trek also started in the 60s.
So, during my time, because I did some research before coming here, so what happened during those years? I mean, it was a big overload, you know? And it turns out the MRI machine was introduced while we were here, and also the integrated computer, Apple II, was introduced, and now people could do without Apple VI. I'm surprised only got 6 versions and 4 versions. Oh well. And GPS, who could live without GPS? Back then, that was when it was first introduced. So there were a lot of innovations starting at that point. I still remember when I met my friend Jennifer, was part of the same orientation group, and she whipped out her calculator. I was thinking, oh my God, you have one of those? I was so jealous. Most of us had slide rules at the time, right, Craig? Tom, I don't think you guys had a calculator back then. So, yeah, she was a star at the time.
So technologically, when I was in secondary school, when I was in high school, if you wanted to compute, you pretty much had to find a place that had some form of a mainframe, or you had to build your own. And at that time, LSI had just come out. So putting together something of your own meant that a keyboard was a luxury. Many of these you had to throw with switches in binary and code in machine code. So when I was a freshman at Mudd, was when the Apple II really sort of like hit the consumer market. And I remember that there was one kid in my class that had an Apple II, and it was like incredible. So that period of time was really when the personal computer, and of course, the personal computer now means a cell phone in your pocket, was introduced. So that was a big change. The societal change probably was something that I was paying attention to, but not something that I was really fully experiencing until much later. And that was the sort of transition of the Jimmy Carter presidency universe to the Ronald Reagan presidency universe. And that was a sea change in the way that a lot of the world worked. But I was kind of insulated, and I was able to ignore a lot of the tremendous amount of activity that was going on campus.
I'd say that 5 years later, same. I mean, the progression for the computers was we finally had a couple computers up in what was the engineering room at that point with the big floppy disks, and you had to schedule your time and feed other people on the machine. And we did start having land, but to have one in your own room that just started coming in. Star Trek was still a big thing. I remember it like on Monday nights. That was what people were down there watching. And like you said, I felt we were very isolated. It was just so intense into the school. You know, there was the Korean air crash and other things that happened at that point in time, but I think people were just sort of focused on doing what they needed to do and the community building up from their friendships.
Well, in 88 to 92, I'm not sure exactly when it started, but Star Trek: The Next Generation. But to speak to technology, the World Wide Web began in that time period. And when I was starting at Harvey Mudd, that was a time when all of us seemed to be coming to campus with personal computers. I had my box-looking Macintosh, but it got the job done. Microsoft Office put out their suite of Office products as a suite. Of course, they had the products out there before. But I think the World Wide Web, how could we get away with that using that, every single day nowadays?
So along those same lines, email. I can remember junior year, Professor Groves required that we each submit 3 emails to the class talking about something we had, some lesson we had learned in Shakespeare. And I've never actually had to use email as part of a class until that particular one. So email was definitely our technological, societally, the Monica Lewinsky scandal was my freshman year.
So I got to see the lovely rise of ubiquitous high-speed internet, which was wonderful. I remember coming here and being like, is there high-speed internet? And we got that, and of course, that impacted everything because we played a lot of video games on the internet. In addition, of course, to all the wonderful benefits of having the world of information at our fingertips now. Societally, of course, junior year, I remember it was my senior year, sorry. September 11th happened and changed after that. And then in the lines of Star Trek, we unfortunately had Enterprise. So.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give the same answer for both halves of this. Facebook. That started when I was here, and I resisted it for a good while. But I didn't get it. I still don't get it. But it's become critical to how we do everything in college admissions. It's a black box for us in terms of trying to figure out how to engage students. They don't like email. They don't like phone calls. Apparently texting works. But like Twitter is actually old now. Facebook's old. They don't use any of that. But rise of social media, it was a thing that we were right in the middle of when I was here as a student.
All right, so I'd say one of the major changes that just happened when I was here was that smartphones became ubiquitous. So this is kind of measuring almost no one had one, and by the time it left, pretty much, well, I mean, you can see now, it's pretty much impossible to function without one for a lot of people. And so that was a pretty interesting change in terms of just like how people start interacting differently. And another major one was Wolfram Alpha became it was one of the better search things at interpreting what you wanted rather than you having to figure out exactly what the query that you want to provide to a search and being able to use that to like work on your assignments for different classes or be able to put together graphs in different differential equations or whatnot without having to really know the syntax was pretty incredible.
Great, thank you.
One more. And since we're continuing on the Star Trek thing, the movies came out that are called
Okay, well, we touched on some of this, I think, but I'd like to sort of delve a little bit into student culture. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the culture, the student culture was at Harvey Mudd when you were here. And again, we'll start down at the end of the day.
You got to remember that when the class of '62 entered, total enrollment of the institute was 72 students. And the culture was not tremendously different from what it now is. I can remember pranking was already present. The notion that pranks should be reversible was not yet well established. I can remember our senior year, at that time we had a beach day, and the seniors all got in buses and went off to the beach and we returned, and all of our underwear and socks and virtually everything was piled up in the center of East Dorm courtyard. Now, in theory, that might be reversible, but you couldn't get within 40 feet of the thing for the smell. In many ways, the culture is very similar today to what it was in the early 60s.
I think I'm going to build on the prank aspect briefly. and that is that I don't think the women got involved because the time that we could use the phones after hours to work were on problem sets. So then the phones went dead. That's when the guys, the problem sets were over, planned the pranks. So we weren't involved in that. So I'm going to pass on that. But something we were involved in was float building for homecoming. The dorms would have floats, and they would design them and we build them. They were not like Rose Parade floats, mind you, but they were pretty creative, innovative, and that's when we used our lates. Had to sign out from our dorms after 11 o'clock to be on campus, and we used those to do that because that brought us all together. It was a really cool thing to do. And if you go back and hold the yearbooks, you can see them. But I think the one thing, I'm going to go back even farther now. I'm going to go back to my freshman year again. I didn't start at Mudd. I started at the University of Michigan. And I want to explain the difference in culture between being an engineer at the University of Michigan and being an engineering major at Harvey Mudd. It was December. I was coming home for Christmas. I was going by train, not by plane. And the train from Ann Arbor to Chicago was absolutely packed. But I found a seat, and I sat down in that seat. And one of my classmates came by, looked at me and said, "Gawk, get up and give your seat to a lady." Now I was shy in those days. So I think I said this to myself instead of out loud, but the thought was, I did. So, but again, I was addressed by my last name, not my first name, because guys always use their last names. I can only remember his last name too. It was Crinkle. I'll never forget it. I don't remember anybody else in the class, but I remember that. I didn't go back to the University of Michigan except to get my stuff. I transferred to Harvey Mudd when I was home at Christmas time. When I came to Harvey Mudd, although I lived at Scripps because we didn't have dorms that would accommodate women at that point, I was respected for a person. I had a first name. I was treated like anybody else, and the word I use is respect. There was no respect for differences at Michigan. There was great respect and inclusion at Harvey Mudd. So that's my culture. Thank you.
Penny, what year? 67, okay. So somewhere between Penny and when I came, yes, we were involved in the pranks. I lived my first year at Scripps, but then quickly transferred over to the new dorm, South Dorm, right, my sophomore year. I think the pranks were safe. We felt more part of the camaraderie, we being the women. My class had, I think, 100 students and 10 women. So it was there was a lot of teamwork, there was a lot of camaraderie, and I really didn't feel anything being a woman. So somewhere between here.
Yeah. You lived on campus.
I had a great time at Harvey Mudd, except for a lot of studying, so that but the rest of the time was really a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching people setting up rooms. One day somebody was gone, and so they set up his whole room on top of the west dorm, I think. And so he came back, his bed was there, the lamp, everything was set up perfectly. I thought, that was very clever. How did you do that? That was very, very good. And also, whirling was very, very popular. Is it still popular nowadays? I don't know. So whirling was really popular at the time. But as women, we were allowed to watch, but we weren't allowed. It's not a good idea to press the button because then you are subject to being whirled yourself. But I understood that it was okay for me to watch. So I'm okay, I can do that. And I still remember streaking for a very short time with popular. I don't know if you guys remember that. So one day I was visiting my friends by Vuitton, I don't know who it was. And these bunch of people ran by, I recognized their faces, and I just froze, just like that, just their eyes, okay, it's over. So luckily they froze, they weren't expecting me there, and they ran off, so all of us were kind of relieved about that. We had one tiny little prank I thought was kind of funny, because Jennifer and I, we received this invitation, so like the presidents, I forgot who invited us, so the freshman dinner. It was coat and tie at the time, coat and tie. So Jennifer looked at us, and we looked at each other and said, we don't have coat and tie. What are we going to do? So we thought, we'll go borrow from the guys. So we went, we didn't know anybody. We just went and knocked on doors and we borrowed coat, we borrowed ties. Louise decided, nah, I have my own jacket. I don't need to borrow a guy's coat. And she had her own little bow tie, you know. So we all showed up in coat and tie. Some people were not amused. They thought but we thought we were very clever.
Oh, wow. So just the general culture, I think, was one of a real pressure cooker environment, real high intensity. And I can't remember exactly the construct, but the construct was during finals. There was like a period of like 10 or 15 minutes at about 10 o'clock at night or something like that, when all of that pressure was just released. And I remember that there was this set of tubing that we had gotten from chemistry and launched water balloons. And so 2 people stood on each side of this very long set of tubing, and the water balloons were launched with such force that they actually flew all over scripts. They missed scripts. So the other piece was Mudd was still very much characterized by a very testosterone, high concentration environment. And I remember that when I went, there were less women in Mudd than at the recently renamed Claremont Men's College. So that was an interesting thing. That was something that later, when I began to interact with engineering students and seeing a much more balanced student body, realized that what's been happening with Mudd, the transition to a more gender balanced environment, was something that we kind of missed out on.
When I started here, the male-female ratio was 7-to-1, and I remember we had the lookbook, and everybody goes through the lookbook before you get there, and so the guys had already gone through, and they knew the 7 women that were there, so you had the line. But the nice thing is that people were very respectful. It was, we're all in this together, and so, everybody's interested in everybody else, but everybody's also supporting each other, and it definitely was a pressure cooker. I remember sophomore year, right before Thanksgiving, the Tuesday night before Thanksgiving, we had a take-home midterm, a big lab due, and there was one other thing I can't remember. But I mean, every sophomore, because we're all taking the same classes, was up. I remember walking across campus at 2 in the morning just to take a break. West Dorm, everybody's hanging out, and everybody was supporting each other. Because you talk to them and you say, "Did you take the test?" If they said no, you go and talk to somebody else. If you need help on the lab, I'll stick up with you for a little bit and help you out. So it was a very supporting situation. And we had our fun. We had the cannon heist, and regularly bedrooms were reconstructed in bathrooms and things like that. It was an insular, it was a very self-supporting community, I thought.
Cannon heist, boy, we really respected that. That led to a bunch of pranks of trying to move other things around here, truthfully, some of which were not completely reversible. The culture when I was at Mudd was also very inclusive, very supportive, and it surprised me looking back, because as a senior, you're very insular with your dorm, so to speak. But I think it all started when we start with orientation. We're thrown together as a class, and it doesn't matter what your dorm is, you find your friends, you find everybody, because the class, our whole class is so small, and there was always support, regardless of the dorm culture and differences there.
So I'll agree with the inclusive. One of the big changes is with my class, it went from 1 in 5 women to 1 in 4 women. And so that was a big buzz with our class. We had, I think, 3 noteworthy pranks. Caltech realized shortly after I started my freshman year that someone had put parentheses up on the highway sign after 100 and some odd days. And then a couple of my classmates did 2 good ones. They put a King Kong on the clock tower down at Pomona, and they also put the Batman symbol up on this oval skylight of the Pitzer.
First tower challenge. So I think one shift that happened when my class started here was Linton Dorm had just opened up recently, and Atwood was there, so my whole time here I spent mostly in Lynn and Atwood rather than the other 4 dorms. And so there was a culture that grew up around each of the suites over there, so instead of just having the major north, south, east, and west things, you had sub-cultures or sub-suites. Mine was just dedicated to playing a whole lot of video games, popping up over there. And so that was an interesting little change, but then of course, you weren't just insulated in that, it was an open community with everybody. And the one thing I remember about pranks was it was unconscionable to bully somebody without a courtesy flash before.
It still happened when I was here, but it felt like it slowly was declining. It was more to a shower instead of the world. Just felt more sanitary. And during my time, when we started in the summer of 2003, the pool, at least the building that was the pool, the location of the pool was still there, and it was demolished that same summer. So we never got to experience that. And during my time here, I think we're the second to last entering class that ate in Platt. Students now see Platt as a study space. We ate there, we threw napkin balls there, spent hours there, it was a lot of fun. And then we also saw Sontag though. Which quickly became known as a senior retirement home. It was the dorm that had kitchens, and it was brand new, and it was really nice, and everyone, all of the seniors, no matter where they lived, that's where they moved into, come junior room draw. And I mean, in terms of culture, I felt like my time, a lot of what happened was a lot of illegal downloading of things on the internet. So like Napster happened, I think, while I was in high school, and then that one way. But here, a lot of torrenting, a lot of notifications from the dean of students saying, "Hey, stop what you're doing. You downloaded the size of one of the servers on campus." And that was known as a Dragon. It was called Dragon, / Dragon. That's how you got into that. And it had everything: music, movies, TV shows. I mean, adult films. That's where students went, and it got passed on. But now they just stream. So now they don't even care. They don't even know what Dragon was. But it was a big thing, and it was Dragon very specifically wasn't just an actual server, but it was a person. So it was a student who graduated in my year. I'm not gonna say his name, but yeah, I knew who he was because he was always the one that
He took requests.
He did take requests, and he had so much electronics in his room that he would sometimes what was the term? Like just mess up the breakers, and then we'd all lose, like a string of us on one side of the dorm would just lose electricity. So that was pretty fun to see. And we also had a joke. I was a tour guide, and we had a joke that the male-female ratio was E approaching pi, which people really appreciated in that time. Which it's funny, but it was also like sad. But I think it was like funny to say out loud and get a good chuckle from visiting students at Yale.
Well, like to echo kind of what several people said about the this nature of people working on academics, like I feel like there was always a collaborative spirit with people working here. Even there's part of the community was such what always been working together. That wasn't like the spirit of competitiveness that I feel like I heard about from people at other institutions. So that was great. They're pretty strong dorm cultures. I'm pretty sure that's been what's going on for a while, and still, and I don't know whether that's still happening now, but people took it seriously, but not too seriously. And one of the things that definitely changed in time was not my class, but the class a couple after is where we actually reached one-to-one in terms of male-female ratio. So that was a sea change, I guess, in education. And I think a really success for the college in just recognizing how to make education accessible to everyone.
Great. I don't know about you guys, but they're taking me back. I have a whole bunch of questions. I can ask them all day long, but I thought maybe, does anyone in the audience have a question that I can give Thomas address? No, I'm all right, so think of something. I'll come back to it. Okay, so the next one I want to ask you guys is, tell me about something that surprised you about Harvey Mudd. So we'll start with Greg this time. That surprised you.
Well, I'd say something that was definitely surprising to be coming in here was, I guess, not exactly the amount of work, but just, which was definitely overwhelming in a lot of ways, but sort of expected and something that, you know, everyone kind of bonded over in just pain. It was, what I was talking about a moment ago was just the, I've never really been part of this community of people where, you know, there's a really bright group of people that are all very, very interested in what they're here to study, and being part of that is still, you know, one of the more incredible experiences I've ever had. So that was definitely a surprise to me, a very pleasant one.
Most things were a surprise to me. I tell a lot of people this because, again, I work in college admissions, but I chose Harvey Mudd for very poor reasons. Well, not poor, but Art Benjamin blew my mind when I met him, and that was amazing, and that was very convincing. I was a classmate with Eric Spute's daughter. That was also convincing. And when I told my parents I wanted to go to art school, they told me, hell no. And my dad's in engineering. He's like, you're going to study something practical, something you can fall back on. And all I knew about Harvey Mudd was that it was nearby. I wanted to stay close to home, and that it offered math, science, engineering. That guy teacher there was amazing, and that's why I went here. I applied to one school at first. That was scary. And then I applied to another one when I didn't get in right away. And so most things were a surprise. So I showed up for Summer Institute, which was a program, sort of a, back then it was more known as a leadership program / bridge program. They're like, don't you know about the core, about the honor code? Don't you know about any of this? And no, I had no idea about anything of that. Because I was the youngest of 3, first to move out to college, which was 50 minutes away. And I didn't know anything. And so it just showed you how small my world was. And the most fun thing that I liked telling high school kids is that when I was in high school, I thought I was the best at math. I also thought math ended at calculus, which I quickly realized was not true. Once I left high school, I was like, oh yeah, that's so much bigger than I ever would have known. But yeah, that was me.
I guess the thing that surprised me was the rumors I'd heard about all of the work and the rigor and the difficulty were entirely true. And you know, high school was sort of a cakewalk, like it was for a lot of people that came in here, and then all of a sudden I'm getting my ass kicked by every single course that I'm in that I used to do really well with. And so that was eye-opening in a good way, because then I was also with friends who, you know, after a couple of weeks realized I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room anymore. And they were struggling too, so you know, the collaboration was always there to keep you up and all that stuff. And so it was just, I remember when I visited, somebody said, you can choose 2 of the following 3: sleep, a social life, and good grades. And so I did what I usually do and half-assed it on all 3 of those. So it was sort of true, right? It was those 3 things, but then it was for the first time too, the most, I finally felt genuinely academically challenged. And so it was surprising that it was as hard as it was supposed to be, which was good.
So echoing those 2 sentiments, I learned what humility was here. My first test score was a 12, I think. So, you know, just learning how incredibly smart other people were and how many of them were out there, because I had not experienced that prior in life. And then I came from a very tiny town in New Mexico, so I came into a lot of culture shock, you know, between LA and different cultures and people and lifestyles. So most of Mudd was new to me.
Ditto. everything they've said. So I'm gonna pick one other thing that shocked me, and that was how amazing were the proctors. There were these people, and they weren't there in the dorms to monitor. They were actually there as people to support, and I thought they were just an amazing group of people year after year.
I had to ditto again. I mean, I came from an all-girls high school, Mudd, so there was culture shock that way. And then coming in with so many intelligent people, I mean, my first reaction is, I'm an idiot. And what was the best thing that came out of it is that not only the students pulled together, but the professors were there as well. And by the end of freshman year, I'm like, I can do this. So it was empowering in the end. You know, the shock, but it was great.
So that definitely kind of realizing humility. And yeah, I think that's a pretty shared experience, except for the couple of kids that I'm convinced just sailed through without any effort. So what surprised me, two things surprised me. One was just a day. And I have a terrible memory. I'm just plagued by a really bad memory, which is what makes experiences like this just terrifying. But I remember this one day very clearly, and that was kind of like the 3 colleges, all in California. One was part of the University of California system, one was Stanford, and one was Harvey Mudd. And my parents were taking me on the tour of each to like see what each one was like. And I remember the Harvey Mudd one just as clear as it were yesterday. And that was the then head and only faculty in biology did the tour. And he was very special. He was a remarkable tour guide. He just made me feel, special. But the feeling that I got was, oh my God, this is a universe that is comprised of people like me. I mean, kind of weirdos like me. And the way that I knew that it would be wonderful. So that was surprising. The other surprise was the faculty. I had never been in an environment where the faculty were as interested in the students. So they would have us to their homes, have us over for dinner. It was incredible, and I've never experienced anything like it, even after Mudd. So that was surprising and remarkable.
It was put very quickly to me how stupid I was. Well, the freshman class meeting, our first meeting, so we're all lined up in this big circle. And they basically told us, you guys, that 90% of you are from the top 5% of your high school. And we're very proud. Of course, we're really bright, so that's why we're here. So now think about this, guys. 50% of you will be on the bottom half of this house. Whoa! So that really scared me. And then I was comparing notes with Jennifer and Tom last night. We were in the same orientation group with Craig and also Louise, and we're still close friends today. And that's amazing, and it's been 40 years. So I was comparing notes. I said, I was petrified when I was at Harvey Mudd. My goal was, please just let me survive. A D will be fine, but just let me survive so I can move on to the next class. Jennifer said, yeah, I prayed really hard. Please, C-. Then we looked at Tom, how about you? A will be good. So we figured like, okay, fine. But one thing what I really like about Harvey Mudd, I didn't realize when I first came here, is opportunity to really expand my education and interacting with people. Scripps, I lived at Scripps also for a year. I loved the Rose Garden. We used to go sneak out and clip a few. They hated that. But, I can't help it. So we would steal some roses from there. So it's really nice to have that. You hang out with guys all day long. So it's kind of nice to have a softer environment to go home to once in a while. And also I enjoyed taking classes from Pomona and also a lot of psychology classes from Pittsburgh. Actually, some of the really good classes I took, Dane's mother never taught you, those how do you handle political situations and work environment, that taught me a lot for work, so getting me ready for the work environment. Not just the hard stuff, but also the soft skills.
I'm sorry I missed that class. But I think that what most surprised me at Harvey Mudd was the faculty. I totally agree. J. Arthur Campbell was there, and as far as I was concerned, he was a god. But he still would talk to me personally, and even after I left Harvey Mudd and came back, he'd call me to his office and let's talk about what you're doing in graduate school. And after Harvey Mudd, I went to Davis, which is where I met my husband, which was so different, so huge. The millions of students in the Chem 1A class, and we were slave labor as graduate students. But I can't say enough good things about the Harvey Mudd professors. One in particular was Courtney Coleman, who was a math professor. And when I came to Harvey Mudd, I thought, of course I can walk on water. I can major in both chemistry and math. And I can take 22 units my freshman year. And so the one I was struggling with was math. And so Dr. Coleman would tutor me after his classes on a regular basis. And then finally at one point he said, okay, so he said, I want you to stop working in my class and fail it. He said, you've got way too heavy a load. Now who would have told you that? No one had ever told me that in any other professor type situation. So eventually I did drop math and I just did chemistry. But I can't say enough good things about Mitz Kubota, Phil Myrie, and so forth.
I can't say that Harvey Mudd was a surprise, because I grew up in Claremont. I sang in the choir at Congregational Church with Ann Platt, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew about Harvey Mudd. I knew some people about, professors and faculty. And my sister preceded me by 4 years. So I had a lot that way. I also didn't have as much of an academic shock as the rest of you did, because I was the youngest of three. My brother and sister, brilliant. But I wanted to be like them, so I was used to working my tail off to keep up with them. But that's why I ultimately ended up back at Harvey Mudd, because I was bored to tears at University of Michigan. Now, I said that to a Michigan graduate, and I realized I shouldn't have. It's an excellent school, but the academic rigor is not the same. So I was bored, and that's why it wasn't the train trip. It was the rigor that I missed. So I was happy to come to Mudd, and I didn't have to get in it. I just wanted to learn something. I was taking my parents' hard-earned cash, and I wanted to get something for it. So there weren't any real surprises that way, except for what Sally said, the faculty. When I transferred, I had chemistry, that was okay. I didn't have physics at Michigan, so I had to go to summer school and then take double physics my next year. Because I couldn't pass the test when I came back after summer school, because Harvey Mudd was different. But Phil Seth was my chemistry professor, and after a week or two, he said, you need help. Here's a tutor for you. I mean, I didn't have to ask. It was just offered to me, and that was wonderful. So, yeah, there weren't any major surprises except for that wow of the professor who came up and said he needed a tutor and provided.
I guess everything surprised me. And I think it's important to understand why. I grew up in South Dakota, and I didn't expect to go to college at all. Neither of my folks went to college. And when my dad was transferred to California, I wanted to become a carpenter, but I couldn't get a job because I was too young to use power machinery. And so one of my high school counselors said, well, why don't you learn to build big things instead of little things? Be an engineer. So I decided, and it happened to be the case that one of the first class had graduated from the high school I ended up in as my senior year in California. And I was urged to apply to Harvey Mudd. Why not? I didn't know anything about any colleges or universities. So I just showed up. In terms not so much of surprises as shocks, and this is a shock that was pretty much unique to the class of '62. When we entered with about 36 students. We graduated 32 students, but less than half of those were people who had entered the freshman year with us. We had the highest attrition rate of any class in the history of the college.
Started
And
at 72, Rich.
What
We started at 72, 72 in our class to start with.
Oh, it started with 77.
Started with 72 and ended up with 33 or something like that.
I think that may be right, yeah. And many of those were not people who started with us. But I think that was, at that point, the faculty and administration got together and said, we cannot run an institution that operates in that way. And that began a real serious concern on the part of the faculty with making sure that students who came graduated, which we've been quite successful at doing.
Okay, but ask again. Does anyone want to ask a question from the audience? Give you guys a chance. Yes, go ahead.
So, one of the things I kind of heard in the last round was a couple of names of professors from both ends of the table that I recognized, which I thought was kind of interesting. So, I guess the question I have is, what faculty member was your favorite or most notable, or what you most remember about the professors that you had?
Sure. So the question was, what faculty member was, I guess, most impactful to you when you were here, and why? You want to start?
Sure. So I'd say just, and part of this wasn't even entirely when I was here at college, but it would be Professor David Mine Harris, because, well, first of all, he was my advisor. I took a whole bunch of classes from him because he taught a lot of classes in area of specialization, which is more like digital electronics, but also ended up teaching a lab section of the autonomous vehicles class, which kind of got started in my junior year here. It was a freshman elective, and got involved in working with some of the people who had gone through that class during the summer to try the spring semester to try and improve on that, and teaching them to design new boards, and eventually teaching the lab section for that class during my senior year. So that was, and he's also my clinic advisor chief, so I saw a lot. And it was interesting because it was a very different experience taking classes from him versus working with him. In that, kind of at first thought it was just this brilliant person that had trouble understanding other people who weren't brilliant, and then realizing like, oh no, this is someone who really thinks about like how this approach to teaching students and whatever else. And eventually, like, I ended up working after graduating, working at Broadcom Corporation down in Irvine, and he, amusingly enough, ended up doing a sabbatical to work there. So I mean, we weren't working in the same area, but we got to go on like hiking trips and stuff, and just talk more about what he was doing at the college.
I have a few, so I'm going to go quickly. Patty Sparks is the reason why I graduated, and probably the reason why I passed electricity and magnetism. Mike Forston helped ground me in terms of my own expectations of what success means as an individual within Harvey Mudd and within STEM, or just within my own life. Steve Adolph and John Jacobson, they were my major advisors, but also my research opportunities for 2 summers. And I mean, in general, I think the faculty at Harvey Mudd continue to be really special in terms of how they show up every single day for our students, for the college overall. I mean, we have our admitted student program on a Sunday, and I can't tell you how many of them come out, take time out of their weekend, away from their families, away from their personal lives, and just show up and really help us show future Harvey Mudd students how much faculty here care. And one of the things that we constantly hear from our visitors is that with every other college that they visit, they don't even see a faculty member. Here, some faculty members will hijack their campus tour and talk for 10 to 15 minutes. But it's the best part of their visit, and it's pretty amazing how often I think I mean, we rely on them a lot, and it's pretty amazing. And I know that in addition to just how much they help our students, they also help us in actually bringing in future students, and that's pretty amazing to see.
So, I mean, like they said, everybody was great. I guess I'll start with Stephen Adolph first, because he was my advisor in biology and showed me what it would really be like to continue to do biology in grad school and professionally. Made me realize I definitely don't want to do that, which was good to learn early on. And then Darrell Wright, who taught philosophy and was the sort of, when I took his first class, I realized this is what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know the name for it yet. And so he really encouraged me and advised me and suggested that I go to grad school in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, which was the perfect fit for me, Bowling Green State University. And so I'd never consider otherwise, because I don't want to go out to Ohio. I know if it's Ohio. But yes, I come to thank or blame for my current career path. And I'm actually going to meet with them right after I'm done with this. So like you said, every time I come back here for a reunion, I'm looking forward to revisiting old faculty. I hope to see Jeff Groves again too. I see him almost every time I come back. So.
For me, it was Carrie Cruxtus, just the heart and soul that she poured into helping me pass P-Chem. Definitely.
That makes sense. How'd that go? The sky's blue, anyways, sorry, bad memory. I think I'm going to go with Janine Sellery and Jeff Groves, people who really put the humanity, when we're a bunch of scientists together constantly working so hard on science, they opened up a different world for me.
And mine are kind of two opposites. Professor Campbell, I have to go, definitely coming in freshman year. He's the one, he was our class advisor, but he sat down and he said, his comment was, learning at Harvey Mudd is like trying to drink water from a fire hydrant. You're not going to get it all. And so you've got to figure out selective blow off. And that had a huge impact on saying, okay, I can just let this go because it's not going to come, and I'll focus on what I can focus on. And then the other professor was Professor Spackham, and psychology. Our environmental psych class was about getting out. We were out in the Claremont and on campus. It's like finding environmental mistakes, but it was all about looking at the world around you from a different perspective than just engineering.
So I already mentioned Bill Purvis, who was absolutely remarkable, just an incredible person. And he was a faculty of one. And he wrote the textbook that I think Harvard and Stanford used, Life on Earth. It was incredible. We had this amazing professor, all to ourselves. And I had multiple points of contact with him. One of my favorite was my senior, I can't remember what it was called, but some course in which you spend a lot of time with one professor. And the way that he described embryogenesis as a tennis ball turned inside out, it was just so cool. And it has to have some impact on that, my intellectual life now is about reproductive medicine. So I think that he sort of laid the groundwork for what I would eventually become very interested in. J. Arthur Campbell, my second slide tomorrow is a picture of J. Arthur Campbell. So spoiler alert. for me, oh my God, what an incredible guy. Also, also the author of the textbook that we used for chemistry as freshmen. These are amazing thinkers and amazing teachers. But he said one thing, and it was like a throwaway phrase. We're sitting around, a few of us, and he just said, the great thing about Mudd is that you can go from any field to any field in your career. That's the great thing about the education of Mudd. And I do think now, after having gone through a trajectory of higher education, that is unique to Mudd. But when I was contemplating moving from really sort of like bench molecular biology, when I was starting out in my career at the university, to engineering, that's a pretty weird leap. I had the soul of J. Arthur Campbell behind me. And of course, when trying to decide what to major in, so many things are like super fun, right? Math is super fun. Physics was impossible, so that was the complicated. So in engineering, of course, that was
like making stuff. It was incredibly fun. In any event, having the chemistry professor say that you can move from anything to anything, and the implication being, of course, that it's easier to move from chemistry to anything else. That's why I wanted to go chemist. So then, of course, Jan Sellery. So I wouldn't have had a dual major in theater if it wouldn't have been for Jan Sellery picking me up after I failed a humanities course, mainly out of my own complete immaturity in torturing the professor, and saying, you know, you have a lot to offer, so, you know, let's do something with it. Those are just three of like a long list. I mean, it's hard to not just keep going and going and going, but the teachers at Mudd are just, I mean, they're really extraordinary.
And the professors I really enjoyed learning from, Coleman, Borelli, Helliwell, those are just superb. They really, instructors, they really encouraged us and they explained things very, very well. But Coleman always has a special place because he invited us to dinner, great cook. And I also was very fortunate I was able to go and house sit for him during the summer, and you should see his refrigerator, good stuff in there. So I was very, very fortunate to get to know Dr. Coleman and his family very, very well. But there's a staff member that was very special to me, and that was Mrs. Larson, placement office, right? And when we were just, you know, going to Harvey Mudd, what do you want to be? So that was the first question, so you have to declare your major. And after 4 years, they expect you to kind of figure out, I'm going to be an engineer, I'm going to be a chemist, you know, I'm going to be a doctor. And I'm thinking, no, I'm kind of not quite sure. So she was really trying very, very hard and really worked with me. And also, she wanted to make sure I had some spending money, so she offered me jobs. I used to file for her, do little jobs for her, so I would have spending money to go to dinner with my buddies and go to movies. And one last thing she did for me, which I'm really also very grateful to her, she encouraged my now husband to ask me out.
That's pretty awesome. Well, you already heard my stories, and the only other one I would tell is Mitz Kubota. And I still see him every once in a while. I will see him, I think, tomorrow night. And I worked for him for all 3 summers. Once, after my freshman year, I never went back home. I just stayed in Harvey Mudd through the summers. But I love it when he comes up to me and said, you know, I still use your iridium complexes that you made 45 years ago. Anyway, he's pretty cool. But also the registrar.
Mrs. Lumpkins.
Yes. She would call me if I forgot to register. I mean, once I got the dates, no one cared. And she would call and say, hey, I'm up, register. So anyway, those are my stories.
Okay, I can ditto on most of the faculty who've already been mentioned, but I want to mention 2 engineers who probably, you wouldn't think of these as positive experiences. My advisor was Dr. Ruskin, Arnold Ruskin. And he told me, after I made all this effort to get into Mudd, he said, you shouldn't be here.
Oh.
You should be a bookkeeper, an accountant.
Oh, no. Wow.
Well, he was probably right, but I fought him, and that gave me the impetus to stay and fight harder, because I disagreed with him. I had fought so hard to get it, and I wasn't going to fail. I was going to keep up. So that's why I remember him. The other one was Sergey. But I remember him because we came back, our senior year, we came back from the Christmas break or semester break, and we all had, all of us who were taking this class, had notices in our box saying, I'm sorry, you don't get a grade, you have an incomplete, your final is scheduled on such and such a date. We didn't have a formal final, he had given us a take-home problem set, and someone had cheated. But he wasn't going to go through the normal honor code thing. We were all implicated, and we all had to take bid for him. That was the easiest way for him, and he took it. And I passed it. In fact, I got a very good grade on it. And he wrote me an application for graduate school. I got into graduate school. I didn't go to graduate school, but that you can do it was really reinforcing to me. So he's one I remember fondly.
I remember most of the faculty fondly. I think, for me, a guy named Richard Popkin, who was in philosophy, was perhaps the most formative faculty member. He's the guy who I went up to after I took physics, and I said, you know, I'd really like to learn something about the history of physics. Would you do a directed reading course with me? And he said, yes. And then he said, what I want you to do is just read nothing but primary sources. And don't read any secondary material on any of these people. And then write something of your own. And after you write, then you can look at some secondary materials. And what was amazing was I found out that I could say something interesting about that material without having looked at the literature that surrounded it. And I think that may have been the most important thing in my academic life. One other thing I should say. The faculty, I think, has always been strong at Mudd. But I think it's important for people to realize that it gets nothing but stronger as time goes on. Remember when Mudd was established, it was a period of rapid expansion of higher education in the United States. And though some outstanding faculty members came, we had to put up with some faculty who were just, we had to hire somebody. And they were available. Now we're in a very different situation. We can pick and choose, and the faculty members that we've hired in the last 10 or 15 years are every bit as outstanding as the best of the beginners, and some of them better than any of them.
Agreed. Yes, agreed. All right, so somebody alluded to this earlier, and I thought this might be fun to kind of go down this path and talk a little bit about what you planned to do before you got to Harvey Mudd and the process of, and then what you ultimately ended up doing in terms of, you know, picking majors and what factors influenced that. Why don't we start, we'll start with Greg.
Well, the thing that I planned to do was engineering of some variety. I hadn't really figured it out yet. Ended up working on software instead.
I thought I was going to be a math teacher, and then I got here, and one of the pleasant surprises was I could do this as a job. Be in higher education, mentor students, see student development, leadership development, and I work in admissions now, but I also work in Res Life and institutional diversity, and it's all because of three of the mentors that I have here: Blanche Pringle, who is an institutional diversity person, Claudia Gonzalez, who was in admissions, and then Guy Burbick, who was in residential life. So they all showed me that there is value in finding a path for yourself, even if what you are traditionally expected to do isn't something that you're going to end up doing. But yeah, no, I mean, it was a surprise for me and a surprise to my family. But I think they're pretty happy now. I mean, they don't have a choice, so.
So I think when I entered, I was thinking of doing either biology or chemistry. And I remember at the time, I was and still fascinated with both the technical aspects and the moral and societal implications of genetic engineering. And so I wanted to try to do something with that. And then I attended a number of talks by people who were basically in the broad realm of sort of bioethics and other things, and I was hearing them talk about this, and I was thinking, they know a lot about the ethics and the history and the other stuff about it, but they don't know anything about the science. And which was kind of annoying and sad, and so I thought, you know what, I'm starting to take philosophy, I love it, so I want to go into philosophy and make sure I have a solid background in the sciences behind it, so I'm not just going to be an armchair scientist, so I can speak to them properly. So then I took more philosophy and decided it's definitely what I want to do, and pursued basically my area of specialization is philosophy and technology and bioethics and computer ethics, which is a really fun field. So I sort of, this was a perfect place for me to do that. If I went to another school, I don't know if I would have changed my major. I think I might have just continued in biology, but because I was here, I had the opportunity to explore those things. Like you said, you know, it's your preparation here prepares you for sort of any field you want to go into. So that's how I made the sort of shift over and still got to combine the two things I like.
Mine's much more boring. I planned on coming in as an engineer, and I am an engineer. I did plan to become a civil engineer, and after Mudd, I decided I wanted softer, kinder engineering. So I did environmental.
I always thought I would be a physicist in some form, had no idea what. As I graduated Mudd, I said, wow, I cannot see the math anymore, and chose other things. Worked in labs for a while, mostly going under the bio side, which was the other part of my degree. Finally completed a graduate degree at USC in pathology, and that led me to a lot of friends who were MD, PhDs, and I said, you know, to apply this is where I want to be. So ultimately med school and on to surgery.
So up until my senior year of high school, I actually wanted to be an English major. And I kind of got tired of the subjective nature of the grading, and I said I want to go somewhere where the answer is right or wrong. So that led me into science. Coming to Mudd, I came in and I was actually going to be a chemistry major up until sophomore year. I was going down the path of chemistry when I realized I didn't like being in the lab. So I switched over to engineering, and like you were saying, Harvey Mudd was just great because it empowers you to do anything. And I graduated engineering, I got a job in engineering, and then I was consulting engineering. When I stopped doing that with the kids, I was teaching art and I was teaching music, which I don't consider myself artistic, but it was kind of like, why not try it? So kind of life has evolved in many different ways.
So for me, when I was a kid, I found the one STEM book in my parents' library, which was a book on chemistry. So up until the age of 8, I wanted to be a chemist. And then at 8, I needed to get glasses, and I went through this magical experience, which is you can't see, and then somebody puts technology on your face, and you can see. So at that point, I wanted to be a doctor. So I entered Mudd wanting to be a doctor, and I left Mudd going to medical school. But my decision around chemistry, as I explained, was purely arbitrary. By the time that I hit Mudd, I really loved engineering. It was just purely arbitrary.
Like Kate, I decided to go to Harvey Mudd for a very interesting reason. I was taking English class, and we were reading Shakespeare at the time. And the instructor said, so what do you think the symbolism of this flower is? I thought, isn't that a rose? What's a rose? I mean, what is the symbolism? What do you think they really mean? What is the metaphor? I thought, this is just ridiculous. I want to answer. So that's why I forget that part. So I thought, Harvey Mudd, that's why I ended up at Harvey Mudd. And then the next thing is, well, what majors should you really go after? I thought, well, all of them are very, very interesting. But the most momentous occasion happened was my first lab. I had to build a circuit board. Somehow, I don't know what I did wrong. I think I somehow something went backwards or something. Things started smoking. So I thought, wow, this is quite powerful. I can build things that smoke. That was an accident. However, I just thought building things is kind of fun. So that's why I chose engineering.
Well, I went in as a chemist, came out as a chemist, went to Dow Chemical, and when I look at what I did at Dow, I really didn't do a lot of chemistry. I spent a little time in central research, and I spent a little time in the analytical. But what Harvey Mudd allowed me to do was spend a lot of time in the manufacturing facility and in engineering. And what I'm doing now, I really don't use a lot of chemistry, but it's just that whole mindset as to how you look at things and problem solve. So and that's mine.
I wanted to be an engineer. I came out as an engineer, but the engineering lab, when we were there, was in its very beginning stages. It was very simple, hands-on stuff, and that's what I had done working in my dad's little manufacturing company, which is why I thought I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I got my first job as a mechanical engineer. Well, actually not, photo-optical engineer, which was a joke in my family because everybody else had cameras and I didn't ever want a camera. But anyway, I then realized I really didn't want to be an engineer. This is going to sound funny, but I didn't trust myself to be an engineer. After all that mud experience, I was afraid to make something that might break and somebody could get hurt. So I didn't want that on my shoulders. So I went from there to doing technical writing, and now most of my volunteer work is in the area of chaplaincy. So I'm helping people problem solve their lives, and so I came out of mud as a problem solver, not an engineer, to be pretty honest. That's what they taught me to be, and I use that day in and day out.
Yeah, I almost always knew exactly what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a carpenter. And then I couldn't, and so I wanted to be an engineer. And then I took physics, and it was fascinating. So I decided I wanted to be a physicist. But the guy who taught physics used a lot of historical examples. And I thought, geez, I'd like to know a little bit about, if I'm going to be a physicist, I want to know something about the field I was going to be in, right? And so when it came time to go to graduate school, I looked around for a graduate school where some of the physicists actually hobbyists in history of science. And there were 2 people at Harvard who did work in the history of science. So I went to Harvard in physics, thinking that I could be a hobbyist in the history of science. And it became so clear so fast that I was more fascinated in the history of physics than I was in doing yet another set of boundary value problems. That I switched over into the history of science. And then I took a course from an intellectual historian who said, you know, why don't you look at the relationships between science in the Enlightenment and other aspects of culture? And God, that was even more interesting than the history of physics. So I ended up for 40-some years writing on the history of science and, where science and religion, science and political ideology, science and literature, science and almost anything, any other aspect of culture you can imagine, and I have loved it. And Harvey Mudd was exactly the right place for me to get the background to do that kind of thing.
Thank you. So I want to switch. I want to ask you guys a little bit about the mission statement. If you can talk a little bit about, you know, what was the importance of the mission statement, or how did you think about it while you were here? We'll start with you.
It's fairly obvious that, that the mission statement ended up driving my whole career. I can remember in the senior year, we had a course entitled Science and Man's Goals. You a little thick around that. And it was jointly taught. One semester it was taught by a physicist named Ray Bell and John Ray, and another was taught by an engineer named Jack Alford and Richard Popkin. And just inviting us to think about the relationships between the technical education we were getting and other aspects of culture were the things that drove me in the direction I ended up going.
I'm not sure the mission statement impacted me particularly while I was a student. I was aware of it, and the clinic was part of that. But it was a major impact when I made the transition from employment to volunteerism. Because I looked at my classmates who were all getting their PhDs and going out and making major impacts on the world. And I felt like a failure. Now, Pat, my husband, didn't think I was. He encouraged me to do it. But one of my classmates, Malcolm Lewis, I was on the Board of Governors at the time, and we were supposed to go to Saddle Rock conference, and it got canceled because it was rained out. So we sat in his car, and we talked. And he said, so Penny, where in the mission statement does it say you have to become the CEO of a company, or get a PhD and teach, or invent something and have a string of patents after your name, or to your credit? It doesn't say that in the mission statement. What does it say? And so making an impact on the world was critical. And I realized that I could do that just as much as a volunteer as I could bringing home a salary. So for me, it's been very important in my life and very critical to my change in direction.
Okay. To be honest, I don't think it had a big impact on my life at Harvey Mudd. I still struggle to remember what it is, but I think what had more impact was the honor code, and I know that was part of the question also. And it was strictly adhered to. I mean, it was a way of life. You felt very safe at Harvey Mudd. It was, you didn't violate that. So that probably had a bigger influence than the mission statement.
For me, what I really embraced was the culture and the technology, the combination. I felt that made this place unique, and we're just not they're not trying to create yet another clone of each other. And they really, I felt like, as part of this environment, Harvey Mudd was really trying to help us figure out who we are, what we're good at, what we're passionate about, explore that, and be the best that we can, and go out conquer the world. And sort of like in conquering the world, to your point, it's not necessarily being a CEO, but having other impacts on the world, and also on yourself, expect more, instead of just sitting back and just, watch games all day long. It's not a bad thing on Saturdays, but it's still continue to learn, continue to strive, and never give up.
So I find myself living the mission statement without really having paid attention to it at all as a student. And I think that what I experienced was how the mission statement was reflected in the culture of Mudd, the academic culture as well as the social culture, the student body, and the faculty. And that's just unusual. I live in a universe where everything has mission statements. Our department has a mission statement. Our college has a mission statement. Our university has a mission statement. My temple has a mission statement. Everything has a mission statement. But to actually see how the culture reflects the mission statement, how there's a sort of like bi-directional melding of the mission statement and the actual culture, I think that's actually fairly unique. So I think that where it's been most remarkable is just how effective the mission statement has been.
Yeah, I have to say that as a student, I didn't necessarily focus on mission statement as a mission statement, but the culture and the intent of Harvey Mudd has definitely impacted my life in that two ways. One, I think about another thing Professor Campbell said was that we're not teaching you facts, we're teaching you how to learn. Because if you know how to learn, you can do anything in life. And so that was to be applied to everything, not just in the classroom. And so when I got to work, I noticed that was a definite advantage because so many engineers, you can go sit in the corner and do your own little thing because you love to just invent your little thing, but to see the whole picture is a huge task, I think, in any design, anything you do, is to see the whole picture. And Harvey Mudd, by having the liberal arts as well as the science end of things, they were teaching you to look at the world as a whole, not just look at your little corner. And that's enabled me to do just about anything in life, is just go and tackle it.
I agree with the people who have spoken before me. The day-to-day mission statement was not a big factor. You keep your head down and you get through the classes. But then there were these brief shining moments I remember, and one was the retreat out in the desert, where we would actually think about the mission statement and think about what's the impact that we're going to have. And those moments were great because it showed that we were very aligned. We were already living it. And that just speaks right back to the culture of the college.
Ditto. I didn't think I was just trying to pass my classes. The only real impact is Professor Van Hecke would give you extra credit if you attended the outstanding alumni presentation. So it was a window into the amazing things that Mudders were going on to do, and sort of a goal or a shining example of what was out there for us.
I
I guess 9 people into this, I want to be the one that just gets clarification what exactly is our mission statement. It's pretty obvious.
Putting me on the spot. Okay, so let me see if I can do this. You know, I got it. Harvey Mudd College seeks to educate scientists, engineers, and mathematicians. Something about like clear understanding. No, so something about mastery of their fields and clear understanding of the impact of their work on society, or something. Close to that.
So I talk about this every day. I didn't think about it. That's how we start every presentation. And this might not be how it is word for word, but Harvey Mudd College seeks to educate engineers, mathematicians, and scientists well-versed in all of those fields, including the humanities, social sciences. We now talk about also the arts, so that they may become leaders in their fields with a clear understanding of the impact of their work on society.
So, yeah, I definitely didn't think about that. There was a shortened version of it, which I remember actually using in my application essay format, and it's easy to say that this has really driven sort of everything since, and it's technology divorced from humanity is worse than no technology at all. And I remember when I read that when I was looking at schools, I saw it, and I'm like, I like that. I like that a lot. And so that's, to me, that's what I always think of instead of the mission statement, but I think that's way too long to try to remember.
No, yeah. we don't believe most students know the mission by like word for word as it is, but they do catch on to that one. That one's more digestible and it's easier to just tell everyone else. As a student, I didn't know. I didn't think about it. As a tour guide, surprisingly, I didn't know about it. But I talk about it every day now, and it's how we start every presentation. It's what we tell students and families, and it's why students choose us very specifically. And it's something that we are very discerning about when we are reading students' applications. How do they identify with a mission? And they don't have to know it. They just have to at least identify with the idea of it. And that's something that we discuss in committee, and it makes our decisions fantastic, but also extremely difficult.
Well, I have a very fancy printed version of it thanks to Professor Gross' printing press last time I was here. As far as, I think when I was here, it wasn't really till my junior and senior year that I really started thinking about this a lot more. And part of that was the engineering practice classes and also just being more involved, actually principal science and technology course as well, and particularly Prof. Senber's class I took on tropical forest practice and policy. And while it might sound like fairly limited things like tropical forest particular, but it really got thinking more broadly about engineering and the role that having policy implications and whatever else, and just how one of the things that I actually don't think that college puts enough emphasis on is just the role that I think graduates here should be taking in society at large, because it's easy to get wrapped up in the problems that we work on and whatever else, but unless you're actually involved in community and society and whatever else, then it sounds like there's a lot of people that are involved with that, but I don't know if that necessarily came out of what's really taught here, despite the fact that it fits well with the mission statement.
Okay, well, we're running short on time. It's almost lunchtime, so I just want to take a moment to thank these guys. And I'm here every day, but it's great to be reminded of all the things that make this place special. And I could have used that this morning, and I appreciate you guys doing that. So thank you very much. And